Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St. Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
Oh yes, and it's the 17th day of February 2018, and we say good morning to Brereton Horne.
17th of February 2018, indeed. Justin, good morning to you and all of the listeners.
Oh, yes, and another Saturday that most look forward to, getting view from the outside.
Yes, I'm pleased that you're looking forward to it. I must say, Justin, you have been doing a tremendous job.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think Randy would have to compete with you when he gets back if he does.
Well, I'm hearing good news. I'm hearing good news about him. So we expect him back sometime.
Right, so tell him he has to compete for his job now.
Well, you see, all of us in this together. You know, as I've been indicating, you can't just stand by and give up. You know,
absolutely.
It's all teamwork. And in this spirit of Black History Month,
yes,
some of the privileges we have today is as a result of people standing up and fighting back and saying no to things that are wrong.
Definitely, Justin. You've got it. You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the weather. We have here at our 6 a.m. report, temperature 22.8. And when I got to the studio, it was raining slightly, but I looked out before coming on air, and things seem to be clearing up. But it's not guaranteed to mean that it's for the rest of the day.
Yes.
But we are 22.8 Celsius right now.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, in London, let me say good morning to all of the listeners, wherever they are, those at home and those in the Vincentian diaspora around the world. It's good to be with everyone this morning. And the temperature in London, Justin, in fact, we're having a very beautiful sunny day today. But the temperature is nowhere near what yours is. It's 8 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 46 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a lovely day, and once this is done, I'll be out enjoying it for what it's worth.
Okay, so it's all yours from here.
Right. Well, before we go into the view, I just want to say a few things. Well, we know that South Africa has a new president, Cyril Ramaphosa. President Zuma has been has had to step down, and the important bit about him stepping down is that he did so because he was trying to avoid a vote of no confidence. He didn't stay on to try to have a vote of confidence in his favor. He stepped down because he didn't want to have a vote of no confidence against him.
You see, some people do not subscribe to this whole adage, take it from my cold dead fingers. That's what they seem to be saying in St. Vincent. You got to get it from my cold dead fingers. I tell you.
Sometimes just in the the universe lines things up so that it doesn't get it from the cold dead fingers.
Yes, ma'am.
Trust me, sometimes it happens that way.
All right.
Yes, so on A View from the Outside this week being the 17th of February 2018, we look at human trafficking in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with the view being that Vincentians must be vigilant and call out incidents of human trafficking that might be taking place in the country and protect themselves from it. The aim of today's program is to raise awareness of the issue and to educate the population about an extremely serious problem, which from all reports is taking root in our country, that of human trafficking. We, on A View from the Outside, are of the view that Vincentians at home, especially, may not be fully aware of what human trafficking is and how it affects them. And it is because of that view why we have chosen to raise awareness and to educate the population about human trafficking, which might be happening right before their very eyes. The Oxford Dictionary defines human trafficking as the action or practice of illegally transporting people from one country or area to another, typically for the purposes of forced labor or sexual exploitation. And the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, which is an international agency that monitors incidents of human trafficking, amongst other crimes in the world, defines human trafficking as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. And it defines, it says exploitation shall include at a minimum the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or the removal of organs. It is important to highlight certain aspects of these definitions. Firstly, human trafficking involves the movement of people from one country or from one area of a country to another. Secondly, there might be some use of force or abuse of power or a position of vulnerability. And finally, human trafficking is done for the purpose of forced labor or sexual exploitation. To illustrate this point, a person may forcefully move another person or use their position of power or influence in society to convince another person who might be poor or a minor or in some other way vulnerable in order for them to perform forced labor or to sexually exploit them. Human trafficking may involve movement within the boundaries of the same country or town or city. For example, a person who causes another person to move from, say, Layou to Kingstown for the purposes of forced labor or sexual exploitation can be said to be involved in human trafficking. Or a person who moves young girls or boys, usually poor, from any village in the country to a resort or a hotel or even a private residence for the purpose of forced labor or sexual exploitation can be said to be involved in human trafficking. Or one could look at a person who brings women into the country in St. Vincent and the Grenadines from another country, or who sends Vincentian women to another country for the purpose of forced labor or sexual exploitation can be said to be involved in human trafficking. In recent times in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the media has been inundated with reports that suggest that human trafficking might be a problem in the country. We have heard of groups such as the Parliament Girls being mentioned in a national scandal where a government minister has been accused of being involved in an extramarital affair with a local model. Yogi Farrell, the name is, that has become international. The Parliament girls are alleged to be a group of girls, unemployed females, who engage in sexual and other activities with men in power and influence in society to survive financially. In addition to that, there also seems to be a general problem with sexual exploitation and sexual abuse of one type or another in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Recently, there have been reports of teenage boys who allegedly raped a 12-year-old female from the same school, as well as reports of 2 schoolboys in a local primary school allegedly sexually assaulting another boy of the same school. Also, we hear reports and allegations all the time of persons who are sexually exploited or abused at the high offices of officials in the country. St. Vincent and the Grenadines now has a reputation in the regional and international media and on the internet generally as a country where sexual abuse is a serious problem. Further, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a negative image on the international scene in relation to human trafficking. In 2009, an online blog entitled Trivesta published an article where it highlighted that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been placed on the watch list by the United States government's State Department for human trafficking. This is indeed a serious indictment on the country. The response of the government was to refute any claim that there is human trafficking in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. However, just 2 years later, the same government passed legislation in the form of the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act 2011 to deal with human trafficking in the country. It therefore begs the question, if there is no problem, as they said, then why rush to pass a law after such scourging report in 2009? Despite the legislation, however, and the many stories that we hear which may involve some form of human trafficking in the country, there have been very few or no prosecutions, and certainly no one has been convicted of human trafficking in the country. That is the view expressed by the U.S. State Department in their 2017 Trafficking in Persons report for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The 2017 U.S. State Department report also says that over the past 5 years, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a source and possibly transit country for men, women, and children subjected to forced labor and sex trafficking. It goes on to say that foreign women engaged in prostitution may have been subjected to sex trafficking in the country, and foreign workers from South America and the Caribbean may have been subjected to trafficking for forced labor both in country and while in transit. Also, that foreign workers employed by small foreign-owned companies may be vulnerable to labor trafficking. What is clear is that the U.S. State Department has intelligence on St. Vincent and the Grenadines in relation to human trafficking, that the authorities in St. Vincent and the Grenadines are either not aware of or they have turned a blind eye to it, perhaps purposefully so. On a view from the outside, we, on a view from the outside, now put out the clarion call to ask all Vincentians to be vigilant and to look out for signs of human trafficking in any form, whether it be forced labor or sexual exploitation. The most recent IMF report has been damning about the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In fact, it is fair to say that the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is non-productive. There is also evidence of general social decadence in the country, and therefore the environment is fertile for exploitation in all forms, including that of human trafficking. So, with all of that in mind, parents, this is a special appeal to you. Parents, we, on A View from the Outside, encourage you to speak to your children about human trafficking. The U.S. State Department suggests that the government is not doing enough to educate the nation about this scourge. Therefore, we encourage you to do your own research, read up about it, learn what to look for. Encourage your children to tell. Let them tell you if anything or if anyone is trying to force them to go anywhere to engage in sexual activity for material gain. Adults, all adults in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you too should be aware of whether you or your children are being exploited sexually or otherwise by anyone of influence or power in the country. If you or your children are subjected to such behavior, then you might be victims of human trafficking, and you should report such behavior immediately to the police and to any organization that you can trust, including the Human Rights Association. We must not allow human trafficking to make deep roots in St. Vincent and the Grenadines if it has not already done so. And if it has already taken roots, deep roots, we must take every step to root it out. Vincentians, for the sake of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, please do not look the other way. It was William Wilberforce who once said, "You may choose to look the other way, but you can never again say you did not know." Until next week, Justin Brereton Horne with A View from the Outside, and reminding all listeners to send feedback to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. I just want to take this time to thank Guvara Leacock for his input into this week's program. He's done a tremendous job. I want to thank him, and I want to say to you, Justin, and to all the listeners, have a pleasant Saturday, have a wonderful Sunday, and have a week ahead where everyone is aware and look out for signs of human trafficking. All the best to you and to all the listeners.